Inside of one of the school's computer labs, all the lights were off while each computer was on standby, ready to be used for the next available person. However, in the very back of the room, one of these devices was still running at full lit tilt. Chandler's face was illuminated by the monitor as he continued to work on his project. Every few minutes, or sometime being he heard footsteps, he raised his seat to check on the door, hoping that no one needed to enter the room. He didn't have the chance to finish his work during class, so he had to find an empty room to put it on finishing touches away from prying eyes. It was lucky enough that he managed to find a room that it was still unlocked. Chandler's phone was connected to the computer's tower, and on the screen were several pictures he had snapped off of Connor and Christina being together. Some of the pictures were back shots, though he didn't fiddle with those. Facial shots, on the other hand, needed to be edited as Connor didn't look too much like Lincoln, if he were one to fully glare at him. Going to the school's website, Chandler surfed through the student pictures, hardly seeing any of Lincoln's. "Geez, Larry, are you camera shy or something?" he grumbled to himself. "Let's see." Chandler scrolled through the last names. Loud, loud, loud. There they are. He found a couple of pictures of Lincoln's sisters, making a special note to avoid them at all costs, especially Lana. A chill went down the boy's spine as he stared at Lana's picture, scrolling away from it until he finally spotted Lincoln's. Chandler studied the picture like a professional photographer, picking out the details he needed to edit his own work. Beaver teeth, freckles, more circular face. He crackled his knuckles. "I hope your little girlfriend ruins your teeth, Larry," Chandler chuckled to himself. Lynn shifted uneasily, her foot digging into the soil as she found it hard to stare directly at her brother. Lincoln wasn't giving away any look that indicated his aggression, and just had a little frown that he gave all of his sisters when he was worried about them. Lincoln took a glance at his sister's arm, raising his brows of how thin it looked. It wasn't very noticeable, but Lincoln could see it lacked a little bit of muscle. Liam then leaned his head over to Clyde. "What are they acting all so funny?" he spoke with a hushed tone. "They had a pretty serious fight. I think it's their first name they actually talking to each other," Clyde whispered back. "Lincoln," Lynn spoke quietly. Lincoln blinked, his mouth drooping a little. He could have sworn off for a second. Her voice almost sounded like Lucy's. I'm not sure if I should even be in front of you right now. As a great brother you are, I've been nothing but a terrible, no, horrible sister to you. Everything that's happened, all the way back to when I lost that one game." Lynn's eyes became glassy when she blinked, small tears starting to roll down her cheeks. "It's all my fault. I know you might be thinking that you had a hand in everything, but if I hadn't let my superstitions get out of hand, if I hadn't called you bad luck." Her teeth gritted more as more tears pooled down her face. Her hands tightened into fists as her frustration and herself grew. "If I had just learned to shut my mouth for once, none of this would have happened." Everyone flinched a little at the sudden yell. "I've always loved you, Lincoln, ever since we were babies." Lynn brought to a hand to wipe her face off a few tear stains. "I couldn't have asked for a better brother than the one I'll have right now. I was just so stupid to see it." The brunette sniffled a little. "I didn't mean everything I said that night about me not wanting you around. But you were right, Lincoln. Not only am I a sore loser, I'm the worst sister ever." She recalled the first nightmare she had following Lincoln's absence. "If you weren't born, Lynn then tried to form the words, but the memory of seeing her brother being killed before her even had the chance to be born pushed out the same name down her throat, only getting choked for sobs that came through. The teen sank into her knees, her hands covering the watery eyes. Tears seeped out from the palms of her hands and between her fingers, running down the lengths of her arms until they finally dripped off her elbows. Lucy was beginning to think it wasn't a good idea for Lynn to see Lincoln so soon, seeing as if she might have caused her sister to regress again. For Lincoln, his former opinion, Lynn had changed almost completely. Turns out Lori was right. She was dealing with the entire incident worse than he did. Lincoln cried a few times on his own, in or in front of Ronnie Ann, and even though and it felt like he couldn't call himself aloud, with Lynn, Lincoln was seeing himself on the first day he ran off into the night. Depressed, lonely, lacking self-worth, most of all feeling like he was accountable for everything that happened up until then. Sure, Lincoln placed some of his blame on the family, but in the end, like he told Rita, the boy ultimately felt that he should take in full responsibility. Not only that, but this also explained why Lynn appeared to be kind of thin. She was barely eating like he did on the first night with the Santiagos. Everyone's phones vibrated and the message came through, but this was ignored. Lincoln then fell to the ground and then had hugged Lynn, her tears then wetting with the sleeve of polo. The Jacques shivered lightly at the sudden contact, but didn't try to push him away. Lincoln then rubbed her back in small strokes, gently mating the Jacques' ponytail. He had then had the embrace for a few moments, noticing how Lynn's crying had quieted down at that time frame. Lincoln's phone vibrated again with another message came. Taking his phone out, he was also noticed everyone was doing the same. Whatever it was a coincidence or otherwise, he didn't know. Taking off idle, Lincoln then saw a few messages in his email. He opened up and found that someone had sent him a link to the school website. That was even more shocking. It appeared to be the same email was sent to everyone else in his grade after looking at the contact list. The boy opened the link, and what appeared he saw made him gasp out loud. On the page led him to where there were several photos of Lincoln and Christina hanging out. Even more so, there was a sign that says, "Link Christina forever," embroidered in the hearts in the middle of the page. The boys and Lucy all shared the same look, open mouths full of shock. Their eyes turned to Ronnie Ann, who got the same message. Unlike them, her face looked as if sadness and anger was fighting over of who should be in control. Tears were forming in her eyes as she bit her lips to the point where she might draw blood. Her phone was clutched in her right hand, shaking as if it was about to break in her tight grip. The tomboy felt like her heart was breaking into millions of tiny pieces. Lincoln had promised that he wouldn't even think about talking to Christina, especially since he and someone like Ronnie Ann. But the saying goes that pictures don't lie, and to Ronalda, all those nights she spent with him, helping him feel better, all the times she had spent with him, the fact that Lincoln literally confessed his feelings for her, did all those moments mean nothing? "Lincoln Loud?" The Hispanic girl spoke in a chilling yet broken voice. "You better explain this."